Recording there. All right. So, first of all, my name is Eric Griffith. I'm the Director of IT for Mechanicsburg Schools, and I record all these presentations so that just in case you miss them or you want to pass them along, you can always do so. The link to the recordings will be in this presentation link. So if you copy this presentation link down, the go.gl/capital S, lowercase y, capital M, lowercase f, capital K, lowercase x, which is just a random link that Google gave me, you're going to get this link, the recorded session, which is recording my screen and my voice, as well as this creepy guy in the corner. Not you, sir, behind you. Yes. Right there, this guy Swivel, who follows me around on that tripod, and anytime I move, he records. So depending on which one works for you, if you want to watch the whole presentation from afar, or if you want to watch the screen, both those links will be available from this presentation, okay? So jumping ahead, a little bit about me. My name is Eric Griffith. As I said, I'm married with children. My children have, I just found out this morning on my drive up here, they both have strep and bronchitis. So awesome. Yep, got that going. And my school called 3 times and then eventually called my wife, and my son went home because he still has a fever. So, or he got a fever again. So even though for an entire day he didn't. So awesome. Can't wait to get home this evening. So anyway, I work at Mechanicsburg Schools, IT director there. It's about 863 kids as of yesterday morning. And one large facility about the size of this high school houses everybody, right? So we were able to do one-to-one about 5 years ago, and it's a great solution there. We've been looking at integrating, classroom technology or Chromebooks, and now we're to the point where we're not so much focused on the Chromebooks themselves and the hardware, but we're looking at the software, the extensions, the solutions that they need in order to get it done. So what we've got is the first couple of sessions that I did this morning was Cami and Pear Deck, and last one I did Google Drawing, and now this time it's Google Forms. So we've gone up to the most expensive down to free. So glad you stuck with me through the day. So if you follow me on Twitter, you can grab any one of these presentations here. If you don't have Twitter and you need to email me, I can forward you the link, and you can do that. It's eric.s.griffith@gmail.com. So used to co-host a podcast called The State of Tech with a couple other tech directors, but one of them moved to New Jersey, so he's dead to me, so we stopped doing the podcast. So anywho, moving on, what I'd like to go over today is using Google Forms, and this is by far my favorite Google tool. In Google, they actually refer to Google Forms as the crack of Google, because everybody who plays with it and gets addicted to it loves it so much, and they just won't stop using it, right? So the deal is we've got Google Forms. Thank you. So we've got Google Forms here, and I'm going to go over how to add some sections, some videos, different things like that. And then, audio program. Go. I'm going to compete with him. So, talk about adding titles, sections, videos, images, different things like that. Getting the best option for that. So we use Google Drawing to create a couple of those images. How to do a go-to section based on answers. Okay, so if you're creating a form based on their response, you can make it go to one section or make it go to another. That's a really cool, powerful thing. That's how a lot of people do those quests where you create your own adventure type thing. Eric Kurtz, who used to be my co-host for the podcast, did a really cool write-up on how he does that, and he explains it step by step. So if you need a more detailed explanation on how to do that, I'm going to link to his blog, and he'll talk more about that. So yeah, then the other thing is, one of my tips is, as we start to create Google Forms for assessments, different things, it's really easy for us to create a Google form and just throw up all the questions we want them to answer, right? So they just run down through the list, right? But when you look at state testing, right, it's one question at a time, right? You jump from page to page to page. So I want to show you how to replicate that inside Google Forms and then what to look at when you're looking at the results, okay? So if you haven't already grabbed this link, do so, because I'm going to dump a Google form here, and we're going to use that Google form to collect data and look at that, okay? So let's jump into it, and I'm going to go into my drawings, click Google Forms here, and I'm going to create a new Google form. Nope, I just went back to Gmail. I clicked New, and I have a link to Google Forms there. You could also go into Google Drive and click New, and then down under New is More, and Google Forms is the very first one there. So, in fact, I'll show you how to do that too. If I click Forms and New, and go down to More, Google Forms is right there too. You can make your own form if you want to learn about how to do it, but I'm going to send this form or have you guys click on this form, and then we're going to use that as data. So if you want to build this same form, you're more than welcome to do so, or if you just want to watch, you can do that as well. Depends on how you learn, okay? So right away when we get started up at the top, we'll name this form, and we'll call this my test form, okay? And notice when I do that, as soon as I click down here, it even carries over my spelling error for me, right? So that's kind of a nice feature. If I were to name it here and then click up here, it would automatically name it up there as well, okay? It's kind of a neat feature, okay? One of the things I often get asked with people who are making Google Forms, maybe I'll work with my curriculum director or another teacher, and they're going to say, hey, I want to be able to edit that form too, or I want to be able to add questions to that form. A lot of times what will happen is they started making that Google form, and they'll say, oh, I'll just share it with you, and then you can edit it too. So to share, they go up to the send button, and then they send it to me thinking that that's shared it, right? But that's not how you do it. The best way to do that is right over here. You click the three buttons, and what you have to do is add a collaborator, okay? So when you click add collaborator, that's when that share button pops up, and you can add a collaborator to the form. Okay, so that's the only Google app that's a little different on sharing, but that's how that works, okay? So in the description, you know, you can start to type. You have your description right there. The first one that I'm going to do is a question, and this is kind of cool. If I wanted to say, who was my favorite minion, all right? So this is a fake one, but I wanted to insert some images in this, all right? Who is my favorite minion? And when it says option 1, I could say Bob, right? Don't really know their names. I've only seen the show like 16 times with my children, but I didn't bother to learn their names. I can click add image, and right up here I have the ability to add an image. So if I go to search for minion, I can hit search, and it will grab a minion. Okay? And if I look at the preview button right up here, that's what this is going to look like. Oh, you jerk. Did I not click add? Okay. Right over here on the side, I'll show you here. Yep. Yep. If I click right on here and I click add, oops, I'll click right here and I'll hit enter. I click on this little image right here. You see that? It says add image right over there. If I click add image, that brings that up again. So I'm going to add another minion. Double click on him. I don't know, Tim maybe. Click on that guy. Go to search. Search for minion. Lots of minions. That's a good one. Double click. Takes a second to insert, but it's right there, okay? So if I wanted to insert images in there, so this is perfect for if you've got graphs, right? And you're saying, you know, which way does the parabola go, whatever you want to do, you want to show how to do that. A great way to insert images as answers, as choices there, is through this means, okay? So let's go back and do this one more time because I was just searching through Google. But there are other ways to do this, okay? So I'm going to go up, I'm going to hit enter, and we'll add another option. If I click on this add image thing again, you can see I've got a lot of different options. So this is where, how many math teachers do we have in the room? Okay, just the one? You're lucky you're sitting by yourself. All right, now, is there more math teachers? Yes? Okay. What I would suggest, if you don't already have a document camera, right? This is an IPEVO document camera. If you want one, there's one plugged in right over here on this teacher's desk. I'm sure you missed that. All right. If it comes up missing, it comes up missing, right? All right. So if you plug that in and you click the Take a Snapshot button, I can't do that now because I'm using this webcam to record me. But if you say Take a Snapshot, you could easily position your document camera and click Snap and grab a picture of something that you need to have, okay? So not only does this work in a math class, but if you're going to give a form or an assessment to elementary level children, right, where you need to say this is the color orange, this is color blue, ball, hat, cat, whatever, right, you could take pictures of things and insert them and still get an assessment for them, okay? So that's under that Take a Snapshot, right? You can also go into your albums, right, grab different pictures and insert those there, right? Down at the bottom, we have a couple of different options, okay? We have duplicate, then we have trash, and then we have required, okay? For me, I like to create one where I've got all my options right there, and it took a long time for me to create each one of those options, right? I don't want to have to go back and create another question and say, like for example, instead of who is my favorite minion, instead I just might say minion 1, so minion 2, say who is Bob, right? And so I've got my question there, and then if I click duplicate, I go down here and then I say, okay, now who is Tim, right? I've got the same answers in there, see what I'm saying? And if I click this little eyeball again, this will bring up the preview button. You can see who's Bob, they have to choose that one. They scroll down to the next one, and then, okay, who's Tim? I didn't have to go in and insert those images again and again and again if I'm doing a vocabulary list and I've got definitions under there. Just little ways to make this quicker and faster and easier for you, okay? So I'm going to close that out. Yep, it's called duplicate, and it's at the very bottom, yep, of every one. So that duplicates the question, okay? All right? The next thing I would turn on, you see down there at the bottom, it says required, right? How many of you have ever bought something online and it has that little red dot next to the field, right? Typically the credit card, right? You can't just not type in a credit card, right? It won't let you go on and get it for free, right? So by doing this, by adding this little required button, if we look at it again up at the top, you can see that it's required. So it says if it has that little red dot, this question, who is Bob, is not required. But this question right here, who is Tim, is required. And if I try and go on without answering it, I get a notification that says, whoa, can't go on, that's required, okay? So it's a good way to ensure that your kids answer every single question, right? I'm going to close that. Now, I know I'm going fast here, but up at the top, we've got a couple of different options up here that I've already been clicking on, okay? So very first is this little puzzle piece. This is something that Google calls add-ons, okay? And some of these work, some of these don't. They recently updated forms and it broke a handful of these add-ons. Kind of disappointed about it because I was going to showcase some of them, but they don't work. So I'm kind of going to do just a frowny face about it, right? The next one is color palette, right? So I happen to like the color purple, but if I didn't, I could go to Fenton Orange. It's okay, I like that color as well. And I can easily change my color palette up top, right?
I don't have that puzzle piece there. Yeah, you have to do the 3 dot. I don't either. I had to find the 3 dot.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep, some of your screens might be a little smaller. Some might have different versions of Chrome running, and in different versions of Chrome, it's in different places, okay? So on this model Chromebook with the latest one, it's the puzzle pieces right there. Plus, I have some extensions already added. So if I've added things, it's going to appear over there for me each time. Next one over is this eyeball. this is a good way if I'm building a form. If I click on the eyeball, it's going to show me what my Google form is going to look like, right? So before I send it out to everybody else, I'm going to click on that preview button, and it's going to show me what my Google form looks like, right? I could even go in and click on it and try and take some of the options and then try and hit submit, and it still allows me to submit it, okay? Yes?
Through it, and there's no other way to...
Nope, and I'm going to show you why that is here. So I just hit submit, so we actually have one response already. So earlier I said, you know, when you're doing this online, or when we're taking assessments online, we have, you know, the state testing asks one question at a time, and then the kid has to jump from question to question to question, right? How they do that is through something called sections, okay? So over here on the side is this little button right here that says add a question, add text, add an image, add a video. Right down at the bottom is add a section, okay? So I'm going to click right over here. It says add a section. And then if I scroll down, you can see I have section 2, okay? 2 of 2. So what happens is it's going to ask all the questions in section 1, and as soon as you answer those, it's going to move to question 2, or section 2. So, to show how this works, first of all, I'm going to get rid of option 3. And this guy, and this guy. And I'm going to take this who is Tim question, and I'm going to grab him right up there, and I'm going to drag him down to the bottom, and let go, and now he's under section 2. Okay? So I could name section 2, and I could call this the math portion of the test, the critical thinking portion of the text, whatever I want. But here's what this does when you insert sections. So I'm going to go to the preview, right? And so now I can see of my test, here's question number 1. Notice question number 2 is not there because it's in the second section, right? And this is to answer your question, why can't you just do this? Because it's a preview of what they're going to see. That's why. So if you go through your test and you have 52 questions and 52 sections, in order for you to preview your test, you're going to have to take your test, right? So I didn't choose that as one I had to take, but I can just go through and say, okay, there, that's what that looks like. So you notice as you advance through there, that's what you do. So I think this is more beneficial. Even though it's longer to go through and preview it, you could also just wait to the very end to go through and add those sections, right? But I think this is beneficial because it mimics what online testing is doing, right? They're asking one question at a time, and they're saying, all right, focus on this, okay? So that's my tip for that. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I'm going to add some more questions here. So my next question isn't going to be a multiple choice. It's going to be a multiple choice grid, okay? And this is one of my favorite ones because typically it's like as an evaluation, okay? So I'll show you what I mean by that. If I click on multiple choice grid, I can say, all right, this presentation, okay, I want to know in my row, which rows go across, columns go vertical, right? In my row, I want to say, how was the presenter on content? Yeah. How was he on minion jokes? Right? How was he on wearing purple? Okay. All of these I could add as questions, right? Over on the side, my columns, which again are vertical, are options. I could say rate them 1 through 5. I could say good, bad, or ugly. Capital, right? So how this is going to look, and let's look at our preview again. Oops. Looks sort of like that, right? I can have as many of those checkboxes as I want in there, but typically you would do a question like this if, let's say, you were rating it, right? Let's say the kid's kids were supposed to read a story, and you have the events listed in the rows, and on the column side it says happened first, happened second, happened third, happened fourth, something like that. This is a way to do it all in one big question, right? So they then, excuse me, can only choose one option. They can say, all right, it's good, it's going to be bad, then ugly. Now, right up here, you're going to have to define it a little bit more and say you can only choose one out of each column, or choose 1 through 5. You can't have 2 seconds or something like that, okay? But this is a way to assess, and it's all in one question. Saves a little bit of time. Instead of you having to rate each question and come up with those answers, it kind of condenses everything, okay? So we're going to look and see how that looks too. I'm going to submit this one here. Let's go down and let's make another question. This time, though, I want to add a YouTube video right above it. Okay, you can add a picture or YouTube video. This one, I'm going to add a video. Search for the minions again. Just double-click and insert them. Now, notice whenever I click this and insert it, I can adjust the size of it, right? So I've inserted a video, and what's neat about this is my teachers who do flipped classroom, right, we were talking about this earlier, flipped classroom for math, they'll go through and they'll write down what they want to have, or they'll explain a problem, do something like this. Part of that assessment is their video is in a Google a Google form like this, and then the kids have to watch this Google form, or watch this video inside the Google form, and then take the assessment right below it, okay? So it's sort of a individualized test that says, all right, watch the video, now take the assessment, okay? So by doing this, you can insert that video there. That's just part of the questions, right? I could do the same thing with adding an image, except I'm going to do something different this time with add an image, okay? So I've got all these different options, right? Most of the time, I want to insert an image, and it's like, you know, pick one of the following. Is it an apple, banana, pear, something like that? Or is it one of 4 options, right? So for this, what I like to do is go over to Google Drawing. So in order to get into Google Drawing, I'm going to go back into Google Drive. I'm going to click New. I'm going to go down into More, and then into Google Drawing. If you don't know what Google Drawings is, I just did a Google presentation on that on Google Drawings just before this that talks about how to set up and how to do different things inside of Google Drawings. But in this one, I just want to insert some images and label it A, B, C, D, okay? So for this, I'm going to, again, choose Minions. That's my go-to thing. All right, search for images. And, oh, got to go with the naked ones. That's kind of weird. All right, we'll grab that one, drag and drop. So if you see what I just did there, I clicked on an image. Wow, that is unnecessary. All right. Okay, yeah. You know what? I'm just going to crop one of them out. We'll see if that helps. A little bit. Okay, so let's say I wanted that image in there. We'll go back over to the Minions, and we'll choose the guitar one. How I got this image into that Google Drawing is I had to click on it first. I clicked and held, and you see if I'm holding on to that image, it's holding on to it. I'm going up to Google Drawing, and then I'm dropping it right in there, okay? So if I've got to search for images that I want to find, and I'm going to, you know, set this up at the top, I can do this and set this up. Now I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to select both those guys. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste just so I can get 4 images in a row, except I'll make these guys a different color. If I click on that, an image, I can go to Image Options, and I can choose Recolor, and I can say, all right, there's some blue Minions, and we'll have a green one too. Okay. So for this one, I then am going to go under here, and we'll type in A, copy, paste, B, paste, see. I think you get the idea. Yep, just a text box I'm clicking on. So you'd probably take a little bit more time and set this up the way you wanted it, right? The checker box that you see in the background means that the image is transparent. And in this instance, I don't want it to be transparent. So actually in Google Drawings, I can right-click on the background and then just choose white, and it'll go away. So that sticks to all there like that. So the next thing I can do is go to File. We'll name this. We'll call this Minion Butts. Okay. I'll go to File, and then we'll go to Publish to the Web. Okay. And if I click Publish right here, it says, all right, we're going to grab this link, and this is something that somebody brought up in the last session, which I didn't teach, but I will use for this one. And I'm going to copy this link, and if I jump back over to my form now, when it says by URL, if I hit paste right in there, that image is right there. So right now I've got my image in there, and so right below that I can say, please select the blue-butted minions, right? And they're going to say, okay, that's minion number C, okay? So just a different format if you wanted to do that versus inserting a picture for every question, okay? So the ability to insert images up there works really well with these buttons over on the sides, okay? How do I what?
Create the answer key.
The answer key, with that, you could use another add-on that they have available here. I'll link to something like that, but there's about three different add-ons that I use for that. My favorite one is called Super Quiz. And what that does is you create an answer key by taking the test one time for yourself. You do it right, and then after that you can fill it out. Yes. You can do that. Yes. Under preferences, make questions required. Yep, you can do this, but you still need to, as far as grading goes, it's not, the reason I use Super Quiz, and it's not that this won't do it, what Super Quiz does is, under each test question, it allows you to insert feedback, right? So if they miss that question when they get that back, it's going to say, oh, hey, that's great, but you got it wrong, and here's some feedback on getting it right. And what typically my teachers will do is they'll insert links to video clips on, hey, you did it right you did it wrong, check out this video clip through that. And unfortunately, right now, that's not something that Google's built-in quiz solution does, which is why I typically don't use it. But yes, it is an option to create that. So cancel right there. Okay. So I have two responses already. Let's look at some of the data on how this works. Actually, we'll generate this data, or I'll have everybody take this quiz. Just click a couple of times. It's not going to kill you to do this. So I'm going to copy this, right? And I'm going to jump back into this presentation. And right here under Resources, click on that, and let's go ahead and just take the quiz a couple of times, and we'll see how this works out, okay? So right now, if I look up at responses, you can see I only have 2, and this is what I really like about this is it's live. As soon as you click on that link and you take it, it's going to start populating and filling it up automatically in real time, or at least it should.
Question about the minion butts doesn't hang in.
For which one now?
The minion butts. Like you didn't give us a...
Yeah, just click on the ones that you can do. I didn't do a very good job of making the quiz, but if you just click on it and then answer it like that and hit submit, and it says it's done. So not a really good question, but you notice is as you're filling this out, it's happening in real time. right? So you get some really good formative feedback right there on how your quiz is doing. So what I like about this is the fact that you can go in and look at the individual graphs. What I don't like about this is you can't do crap with those graphs, right? You can't go back in and say, well, I want to change the color, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? So, but what you can do is copy the chart and then paste it into Google Sheets and manipulate and edit it there. So you can see that it grabs the data in real time. Over here on this side, if you click an individual, it's going to let you know if I had you put your name in there, I could click through there and you would be able to see names, first and last names of how, who did what, how that looked, all right? What's that? So I didn't turn this on because it wouldn't work because we're not all in the same high school, but in a classroom setting, very good question, what I would do is I would click on that gear, and up here at the top, it says collect email addresses and response receipts, right? I can also say restrict this so that only students at Mechanicsburg schools can take this quiz. There was a school district in Ohio that was sued because they had taken copies of their textbooks, right? Taken copies of the textbooks, and they had scanned them and inserted them into the Google form, right? And said, okay, read this passage and then answer the question. It's a great idea, right? You're doing that. It's very similar to how it is online, right? They read a passage and then they answer it. The problem is they didn't restrict it to the school, okay? So what happened was that made it public, which then made copying a book copyright, which apparently that's what the C means, right, on stuff. So not okay, and lesson was learned. So that's why this little feature here that says required to sign in, you can also restrict them to one response.
So they haven't been okay copying the book and having to read a passage?
Yes.
Have they restricted it to
yes.
the school?
Yep, because that school owned those books, and you're allowed to make a digital reference as long as it's kept within a classroom. Well, your digital environment is part of that classroom. So under fair use, that's okay, right? Now, if you only bought one book, right, and it's the teacher sample, not so much. But if you own 27 copies of that book, and you have 3 classes that are taking it, as long as you have enough for one in every, or one for the kid, a full classroom, you're good to go. So, yes. Uh-huh.
When I clicked on receiving the responses on my own, the only thing that I saw instead of a pie chart was Excel sheet.
Okay.
How do I get the pie chart or graph?
So the pie charts and the graphs and all that stuff, they don't show up until you have responses in there. Okay? So if you only have one, or if you don't have any responses, nothing's going to show up, right? So if I go back to responses and I click on summary, I see those quick responses right there. But what you clicked on, which is the next step here, is open up in a spreadsheet. Okay, so this is my favorite part. If I click on open up in a spreadsheet, the very first thing it asks me to do is create that sheet. So I'm going to hit create, and it opens up, and now I have a editable sheet of data that I've collected. Okay, so this lets me know, you can see how this looks. This presentation, this is on content, minion jokes, wearing purple, right? So this is how people rated those individually, right? So if you were going to then use something to grade, which there's easy quiz, super quiz, and I forget the name of the other one. Flubaroo, I was going to say, is the really popular one that I never pronounce. It sounds like a bird that shouldn't exist anymore. I don't know. So there's a lot of them that use, but I like Super Quiz only because it allows you to give detailed feedback, assuming the student is going to get that wrong, that question wrong. So from there, that'd be another add-on that you could do here. But I'm going to jump back into Google Forms here because there's a few more things I want to show you with this. So one, you can always check that box and it'll stop accepting those assignments, those responses, right? So you turn that on, and if you were to try and submit this again, nobody could submit it and say, I'm sorry, this quiz is closed, okay? The other thing I like to do is, let's see, right here where it says get notifications for new responses. I don't always give classroom quizzes, but what I'll do is I'll send information out to parents or students, and it's a home survey that I want them to fill out, right? And when I turn on this get notification for new responses, if it's something that I send out and I stop going in and checking every day, okay, are they getting this, are they getting this, are they getting this, I jump back in there and I can turn on get a notification. So when somebody submits it, I get an email notification, I click on it, it takes me right to that response, okay? So kind of a neat feature to do that. Other thing is right over here, if I click on the gear again, we have the ability to turn on what's called a progress bar. I'm sure if you've ever filled out a survey online, you're going to see a progress bar slowly fill up across the bottom. Some tests do that. I know my son who has some autistic tendencies. That's one of the things that you can disable in testing for him. It's anything that shows him a timer or anything that shows him progress, because he needs to have smaller chunks of time in order to get things done. So you can turn that off. You can turn on the question order shuffle, but if you have one question per section, it doesn't shuffle. So understand that that's going to happen. Right down here, this is one of my favorite tricks. At the very end, it says your response has been recorded. By default, whenever you submit a form, it's going to pop back and say, hey, your response has been recorded. This is where you change that. So what I like to encourage teachers to do is, after they've done a test, insert a link here that takes them to read theory or math games or whatever the next thing is that you want them to do. Because if they don't and they complete your assessment quickly, it's just a free-for-all, right? And you're not, you know they're done, but you don't know what they're doing, okay? So this allows you to assign them something to do right after this, okay? So that right there is under settings, presentation, and confirmation message, okay? So again, you can paste a link or anything in there, and that's going to work just fine, okay? Talked a little bit about quizzes. The reason that I don't use them is it doesn't provide enough feedback, and I'm a big proponent of feedback. If you're going to tell somebody why they got something wrong, I always want to say, well, you got it wrong because of this. And currently it doesn't offer that solution yet. I'd love to see how Google is going to integrate feedback into quizzes. I'm assuming it'd be as you're filling out that quiz, you know, as you're building it, there's probably going to be a little box right next to it that says, if they get it wrong, display this text, right? They're just not there yet. So, anywho, let's jump on to this guy right here. Now, sometimes I need to fill something out where I want the very top part to have the same teacher name, okay? So, let's say I've created a survey, and at the top of the survey, I have that teacher's name already typed in, okay? And I want it to be specific. I need it to be typed in all the same way. What I can do is click Get Pre-Filled Link. And when I click this, it says, okay, answer all the questions, then click Submit. Okay, so let me do this a different way first because I want to give more details as to why I would do something like this. So I'll jump back into questions. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and hit the plus. And where's my question? Right, so name is what I want for this one. I'm going to click right here, get pre-filled link. And I'm not going to answer any of these questions. I just wanted to say Mr. Griffith. Let's say 99944 or whatever, some specific number that's in there, and this is going to tag it for some reason. I need this to be the same on everybody's page, but I don't want it to be a drop down or something, anything that they change, okay? So I'm essentially taking the quiz for them, and then it says answer the questions, and then click Submit. So I'm going to go down and click Submit, and instead of it saying, okay, we collected the response. What I get is this link that says, okay, we went ahead and created this pre-filled link for you. Okay, so I'm going to copy this link, and I'm going to open this up and then paste it in another link right here. And if I open it up, oh crap, I turned off the link. I got to jump back. Responses, turn that on. Look at that again. All right, so if I look at this link again and I go to next, I scroll down, I can see that, oh, didn't do it right. Nuts and bolts. All right, hold on. Do this again, grab a pre-filled link. Probably didn't work because I had it turned off and I just didn't like that. Say Eric, hit submit. Now it says grab this link, type copy, and then I go into a new window and hit paste, hit enter. If I scroll down, I should see the word Eric. Oops, next. I should see the word Eric typed in there for me automatically. So if I ever had to have something where it's pre-filled out, I'm thinking maybe it's for a survey or something like that where I want that, hey, I want that to be pre-filled out, I could do that in that pre-filled out link. As many of those needed, I could do that. How I use this for myself is at the end of the year, each one, I have three technology people total, including myself and one part-time person. And when we click on this, we have 3 check-ins, right? Our students bring us our Chromebooks at the end of the year, their Chromebooks, and we check them in. And instead of us having to scroll through, we have 50 things that we're looking for on this link. Our names are checked in at the bottom. So if I click on Griffith check-in and I scroll all the way down to the bottom, my name's already checked on, all right? So I know it's just one thing I got to click on. Kind of a lazy thing, but you know what? I'm not going to screw that up. That's one less thing I have to click on. And if you're doing this in the interest of kids, it's one less thing they have to click on as well. So anyway, all right. I think we're out of time, right? Are we done at 3 or are we done at 3? 3? All right. So anyway, jumping back to this, I'm going to have a link to this recorded right here. But the last thing I wanted to show you was the questions where it says, all right, now based on an answer, you need to go here, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to hit plus, add a question. Where'd my question go? At the top. So where it says option 1, I want it to be a multiple choice. Option 2. And I should have the option right down here that says go to section based on answer, okay? So if I click on go to section based on answer, these little guys pop up over here. And it says, okay, if I answered option 1, then go to section 1. If I answered option 2, then go to section 2. So remember those create your own adventure stories that you had to do, and it said flip to page this, flip to page that, right? This is that same concept, only how that works is you using those sections to flip to them, okay? So let's test this again. If I create another section down at the bottom, and we'll call this the end, I'm going to put this guy up at the top, and we'll say if I answer option 1, it goes to the end. If I answer option 2, it goes to number 2. So we'll look and see how this works. So option number 1, if I answer it and I go to next, it jumps to the very end. Okay. So based on your response, it'll go to that very one. Yeah, very nice. All right, so that's how that works. Now, for some reason, too, I've noticed that the videos, if you insert them, they automatically start playing in Google Forms. I forgot to mention that, but they automatically start playing in Google Forms. I don't know why they turned that on. But when we've done this before where a kid has to watch video notes or something like that, always have their headphones out, plug those in, and get started with that, because unfortunately, they just start right away. So, good deal. There is so much to cover in Google Forms and Google Drawings and Google Sheets and all that stuff that it's really tough to do that in a 45-minute block, right? So the best case scenario is if you follow me on Twitter, as I post different things like this, if you have questions, you can ask me. If I can create a few-minute video to help you out or further explain something, I'll definitely do it for you, all right? So go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Mr. Grifftastic, and I'll go ahead and post the video and link and information to this stuff later on today after I get home, after I put some strep children with bronchitis to bed with the last bit of medicine. I'll probably jump right on this and get that done. So anyway, is there any other questions I can answer about Google Forms for you today? Yep.
What if you're doing like parent-teacher conferences? So you set it up like in a drop-down menu and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you set it up so that once they make their response, that selection is taken off?
Okay, it's a good question. There's an add-on that does that. If I go to my add-on section,
Choice eliminator?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think it's Choice Eliminator. It's might be Form Ranger. No, Form Ranger is broken. Might be Form Scheduler. Yes. Lets you limit responses and schedule the form based on, that's calendar events. You're right, it is Form, Choice Eliminator. A couple of these are broken, though, and that's what's unfortunate about this is they added these add-ons to Google Chrome, and they work really well. They worked really well for years, and then what happened was somebody changed one little bit of code, and it's not up to Google to fix the add-on. It's up to the person who writes the add-on. So it's unfortunate, but.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to let you know that we are not done yet here at miGoogle 2017.